right, welcome back everyone for a new episode of Spoilers. This is my new comic review show where I'm going to be covering 3 new release books that just came out yesterday and give you a spoiler-filled review, and then also highlight some first appearances, some key moments, some tiebacks and callbacks to some previous books, things like that, in sort of a pop-up video style, informational purposes kind of way. Hopefully you're enjoying this series as well as everything else here on the channel. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below. Make sure that you like, you subscribe, you hit the alert button so you don't miss anything. Keep telling your friends so we can keep growing the channel. And let me know what you think of this show and what you might think I need to do differently. Should I speed things up, stretch things out, give you other bits of information that I'm not providing, etc. I'm open for suggestions, as this is still a work in progress. This is only the 3rd episode after all, so I'm still trying to figure this thing out as I go. So again, I could use your help, kind of tweaking the process. Now, with that said, if you want to see what books I got for you this week, all you got to do is hang on for a few seconds after the intro, and I will be right back. All right, let's get into our first book, and it is coming to us from the world of Marvel Comics. So I'm going to start off with a Marvel book this week, and this time out, I selected an issue 2. Issue 2, actually, of Storm. I really dig this cover, and I like Storm. She's one of my favorite X-Men, and I thought, hey, now's a good time to go back and review this book. But before we get to issue 2, just to kind of bring us all up to speed, the last time out I did this, I did a lot of issue 1s, so we were kind of all starting from scratch. So I felt like with my picks this week, as we're in the middle of runs, etc., I kind of felt like I need to kind of bring people up to speed. So before we get into issue 2, let's take a quick look back. Again, I'll try to make this as fast as possible. A quick look back at what happened in the previous issue. So when Storm 1, previously on Storm 1, let's just kind of do a quick recap just to bring everybody up to speed here. So back in issue 1, we're introduced to Storm and her new little, I guess like a national reserve of some sort, like animal reserve that's floating up in the sky. So Storm can fly. She has this flying safety area for all these animals up in the sky, which I don't know how she manages this or how this actually works, but there she is. She's flying above, I think, Atlanta, Georgia, in a national park reserve for a bunch of animals. Cool. Storm, meanwhile, also responds to, while giving this like a kind of like a speech of introducing herself and not introducing herself, but kind of reestablishing herself amongst the community, etc. We're called back to 7 days ago where there was an incident in Oklahoma where there was like a nuclear fallout of the sort. So Storm and another X-Men, well, actually X-Factor character, Frenzy, they go check things out, kind of save some people, and find out that the actual cause of this nuclear fallout is this mutant boy who's coming into their powers. So they go through and save the kid and save the rest of the town from what they could. She debates whether to reveal to the world that it was the cause of a mutant or not, and she ultimately decides to be truthful and tells everyone that it was a mutant's activating abilities that caused this reaction and this terrible tragedy. She loses a lot of fans, obviously, so people kind of turn on her immediately. They're just kind of blaming mutants are bad, yada, yada, yada. So we have that, and then at the very end of the issue, apparently Eternity gives her a power upgrade of some kind, and she's now the Eternal Storm. I don't know. I don't know what this was. And to be honest, they don't explain it in issue 2. But before we get to that, now that we're all caught up, let's look at issue 2 and see what actually happened in this book. Because again, they don't follow up on that Eternity business right there at the end of issue 1, which I'm kind of disappointed in. The only connection we get is that she's rocking the white outfit, which we will get to once we look at the guts of the book. So we start off this book on the high seas. We got like a cargo ship and a bunch of pirates. So there's a bunch of pirates attacking this cargo ship on the open ocean. Meanwhile, I guess our new, Eternal Storm or whatever the heck Eternity was giving her, there she is in her white outfit, just kind of saving the day. So she saves the pirate, saves the ship from the pirates. But while the captain is appreciative, he also asked her if she could leave because she's not supposed to be there either. So, not that thankful, I guess. I guess you could say, but it's kind of the state of the Marvel world right now. So He's just saying, I don't want you accidentally, destroying this boat by igniting some of the flammable materials, etc., whatever your powers, because you don't seem to be in control of yourself. As she's there hacking her away, and as you can see, their blood on her arm. This goes back to that issue 1 nuclear explosion fallout thing, because she apparently was irradiated quite heavily and is dying. Yeah. So all of a sudden, we're starting off issue 2 with Storm dying. Well, you kind of have to pick that up just from context because it's not very clear, nor is what the heck was Eternity doing at the end of the first issue. Still wondering about that. But so we leave the pirate ships or the pirates, and we leave the ship, and she's back on her sanctuary here, floating above, Atlanta. She's feeding hippos and I don't know what those are. Those muskrats or what? I don't know. Whatever these crazy creatures are, she's doing a lot of work with 14 hours, 13 hours, 12 hours, 11 hours left until she's going to die. Granted, she doesn't know this yet, but they are telling the reader this information at this point because she eventually, after getting I think she gets cleaned up, take a shower, hair's falling out. She's like, oh, I better go get myself checked out. So then she takes this trip to this junkyard. And I'm like, okay, what's going on with this junkyard? And then we get introduced to this bearded guy who is kind of like the guard of this junkyard who won't let her in as she's going through this whole thing, rigmarole of I'm an Avenger. Let me find my badge. Oh, you really are an Avenger. I thought you were an X-Man, not an Avenger. They wasted a lot of time on this. There's like 2 or 3 pages just based on this exchange with this dude to get her through this hologram to this place, which is the Night and Day Hospital for the Extra Mundane. Interesting. So here we are in Arkansas. Apparently 8 hours left until Storm's about to die. Again, she don't know this yet, but we do, again, as the reader. But kind of cool that there's this hidden hospital for superheroes. That's not bad. I don't understand why we needed like 2 pages of her trying to get into this place. Like, I don't get it. It's just to kind of really drive home that point that mutants are discriminated against. I don't know. But here we go. And we get a little bit more of that when we get inside this place. Because here first, we are introduced to Dr. Day. As you saw, it was called Night and Day. Dr. Day is a new character here that we first get introduced to, and he's there to basically treat Storm. However, he's not there to help her because he considers her an X-Man. And she's like, I'm not an X-Man, I'm an Avenger. And he's like, I don't treat X-Men. He's like, oh, what is he? You got prejudice against mutants? And he's like, no, I just don't like X-Men. That said, that was his only rule. I'll explain more in a minute as to why he had that rule, because it actually does make sense, and it is kind of cool. Like, actually, I kind of like the explanation and the callback. But with that said, let's just get in here first. Again, this is Dr. Day. This would technically be his first appearance. So hopefully we see more of this guy, because I actually kind of liked him. As I said, he was giving her some crap for showing up, saying, I don't treat X-Men. And he explained why he doesn't treat X-Men is because all these other groups, like the Avengers donated money, Fantastic Four donated this, that, and the other. Even Force Word, he's Moon Knight, who's got donated this, that, and the other. X-Men never gave anybody a thing. He's like, 80% of the people we treat here are mutants. We've got nothing against mutants. It's just the X-Men not paying their due. So he was a little salty about that. He quickly turns when she offers him this huge ruby on her neck, which, I mean, I guess that's okay, but still was kind of a fast turn. He should have been more of like, this is a start, not, I never thought the day would come, but the X-Men are all welcome here anytime. Like, it was too fast of a turn, but all right, I'll buy it. I mean, we're going to get this thing moving along. That said, he also references that this place was started up between himself and right up here, the Night Nurse. So that's why it's called Night and Day, because you got the Night Nurse and Dr. Day. We do not see the Night Nurse in this issue. She's just referenced here in this little bit here when he's explaining where this hospital came from. But I figured even though we don't see her, maybe she pops up. Maybe we see this hospital again in other comics going forward. I don't know, because again, it's kind of a fun idea. But for now, quickly, since we brought up the Night Nurse, let's just take a quick look into that. Since she's not there, we don't know exactly which version of the Night Nurse is co-owner or co-runner of this hospital. We can go all the way back to 1961 to the first I think it's Linda Carter is her actual name. Yeah, Linda Carter, student nurse. This is actually the first appearance of the character that becomes the Night Nurse from 1961. Most of you actually I probably know of the 1972 comic here, which again is sort of a different character. I mean, she's got different color hair. I don't know if she's supposed to be the same person as the other one or not, but yeah, kind of, sort of. And then we also have Bendis reintroducing her here in the 2000s in this issue of Daredevil, issue 58. But her history's kind of convoluted. So I'm not sure if these are all supposed to be the same night nurse. We have different night nurses or what. Also, remember, Claire Temple from the Daredevil show was factored in the comics, is another night nurse. So there are other night nurses. There's more than just one. But as far as using that name, Linda Carter, is a little convoluted because her look changed over the years and they added like a middle name at some point too. It just made it a little bit confusing as to whether this is supposed to all be the same person, coincidence, or whatever. Now, that said, there are your options for some first night nurses for you to go out there and find if you're curious about that. Getting back to the story, he's telling her she's only got about 6 hours to live, and he's got to refer her to somebody else because he cannot help her. He cannot save her. So she's getting a referral to go see the Sorcerer Supreme, or not the Sorcerer Supreme, a former Sorcerer Supreme. So Storm's like, oh, only got 6 hours. I better hurry up, and I better go check out, get checked out. So she leaves here, starts flying across the skies, across the planet to go find her former Sorcerer Supreme to help her out. Meanwhile, somewhere along the way, Moana's grandma shows up and knocks her out of the sky or something. I don't know what this was going on here, but yeah, apparently kind of like a tribal space whale showed up. So I don't know if they just watched Moana or what, but yeah, this happened. And then she falls from the sky, and there she goes. She lands on this island. And meanwhile, luckily, she got to where she was going, and it's Dr. Voodoo. That's who needs to help her because she needs a cure, magical in nature, for some reason, even though she was irradiated, because I guess there's no regular cure for this. So we got to go to magic. I don't know. But here we go. We got Dr. Voodoo. So before we wrap our story on this comic, let's take a quick look at Jericho Drum here. So Dr. Voodoo has been around for a while. His original first appearance goes all the way back to when he was Brother Voodoo back in Strange Tales 169. So there is that issue. You can go back and try to hunt for it. But that's when he was Brother Voodoo, and different, same character. I mean, he's still Jericho Drum, and his brother is a ghost, etc. But it wasn't until this new Avengers issue, where it was issue 54, where he took on the Sorcerer Supreme moniker and became Dr. Voodoo. Because of Doctor Strange, I guess, he had to be a doctor too. He couldn't just be Brother Voodoo, Sorcerer Supreme. He had to be Dr. Voodoo. Okay, whatever. Cool. But that was an issue 4 of New Avengers here. And you can see here where he gets the Eye of Agamotto, etc. Becomes the Sorcerer Supreme at that time. As you all know, Doctor Doom is currently the Sorcerer Supreme in the Marvel Universe. So yeah, we'll have to deal with that eventually. But with that all said, that was the baseline of this story, which, yeah, it seems kind of weird, and some things seemed a little bit out of place. Like I said, I don't know what was going on with that space whale or that whale in the sky, and I also don't know what's going on with Eternity. You introduced that last issue, and then you don't touch on it at all this issue. And meanwhile, if Eternity granted her these superpowers, why is she still dying? I don't know. Things still need to be cleared up. But my final word on this one is that I'm still on board for issue 3. Art was great. Dig the covers. I like Storm. I want to see where this goes. It's just I have questions. That's all. I have questions. And I don't know if we're going to get answers to all of them, but yeah, we'll see. That said, any of you out there watching who hasn't tried Whatnot yet, now's your chance. Please use my link below. Get yourselves a free $15 to spend on whatever you want with whomever you want. You just get to try out the app, the auction marketplace. There's buy it nows. Free $15 to spend wherever you like. No strings attached. You'll help out the channel by signing up and doing so, and you get yourself something nice. So if you haven't tried it yet, you really have nothing to lose. Only $15 to gain, and just give it a shot. So with that said, we will move on over to the Distinguished competition and see what DC has to offer us this week. Now, once again, I did not go with a new number 1. I thought about it and thought about doing the question, but we kind of covered the question yesterday on TAC, so I want to kind of keep things separate and try not to double dip if I can avoid it. So I decided to check out the most recent issue of Titans. So I'm looking at Titans number 17, no longer the Teen Titans, because, they're adults. I mean, they're a team that's, could stand head to head with the Justice League at this point. But to bring us up to date, considering this is issue 17, let's take a quick look back once again, at issue 16, just to bring everyone up to speed. So, previously on, let's check this out. Now, last issue, they were on an adventure. They came back to headquarters, and they're starting to discuss change in leadership. So Nightwing is looking to hand the reins over to Donna Troy to be the team's new leader. And then they take a vote, and everybody's like, yeah. I'm in. Cool. Donna Troy is going to be the new leader of the Titans going forward. Now, meanwhile, while they're having this meeting, everybody's feeling a little wonky. They're like, it feels like somebody's trying to get into my head. Like I'm having these memories and these visions. Things are getting crazy. It's affecting everybody there on the team. And then we can see here it's affecting everybody, including Raven, who ends up lashing out and seeing these visions of Trigon, and then knocks everybody out. So the whole team is undone by whatever this secret mind attack was, and it is then revealed that they were secretly being attacked by the Clock King in some fashion. So the Clock King is the guy at the end of last issue who attacked the team, and here we are. And then meanwhile, new team leader is ready to square off against him right away. Now, that brings us up to speed to where we are now. That was the end of issue 16. So now that we're caught up, we can look at issue 17. Now, right out of the gate, we pick up right where we are. And then you see Donna Troy ready to just lay right into the Clock King. Now, we're getting the context, from the Clock King's point of view. He's saying he's not a fighter, he's a thinker, yada, yada, yada. His strongest weapon is his brain, etc., etc. Now, Clock King. This is also a very convoluted character. Multiple versions over the years, multiple names, etc. Even the same names, making it kind of confusing whether these are supposed to be the same person or not. And then you factor in all the reboots with Crisis and Rebirth and New 52, etc. So I'll do my best to give you a rundown on Clock King here. So, first things first, let's look at Clock King. So, Clock King, very first one, first appearance goes all the way back to 1960, World's Finest 111. So, that's where you're going to find your original Clock King, William Tachman, I believe it was the name of the character inside here. He had a much different look, kind of silly. He had a bunch of clocks all over his tights, had a cape. Okay, that isn't necessarily the same character that we're looking at here today. Granted, he could just have a change of outfit, but it gets a little more confusing than that because of the power sets and how eventually he had an affinity for clocks, and then we had powers of seeing into the future by 7 seconds, and then there was other versions. You'll see. So in 2008, we were introduced to someone who was referred to as Clock King 2, which was not the same person. They were explicitly saying this is not the same Clock King as before. And this was in Teen Titans number 56. And inside this issue, we were introduced to Clock King 2, which was a character who referred to themselves as Tem. Like Tem. I'm assuming like Tempest. Like there was references to like Tempest Fugit and Temporal, whatever, but they referred to themselves as Tem or referred to as Tem. So they were Clock King 2. Not exactly the same Clock King as before, or the one we're dealing with today. Now, we're going to move on a few years later in 2013, during New 52, we have another Clock King in Green Arrows. This is Green Arrow number 22, and we have another complete redesign of the character where he's now an African-American character, and he doesn't look like he did before, and it looks like he has a tattoo on the side of his face with a clock. Also, not the same, but name is very similar in that he went by Billy Tachman. So not William Tachman, this is Billy Tachman, but it's not the same character. All right, then. We go a year into the future from there, and we're at Harley Quinn, number 11 in 2014, and inside of this issue, we're also introduced to another Clock King going by the name of William Tachman, and this one looks more like the guy we're seeing here today. Now, can't be 100% positive which one's which yet, of which one they're using, but it looks like this could be the one. So the Harley Quinn 11 looks like the version we might be tying back to. Now, inside this issue, here he is. Like I said, there's your look at the character he's introduced. So he's got the look with the glasses, the top hat. So this looks like the vibe and the character that we have today. Now, this character also seems to be the one that was tied in with this Suicide Squad Dream Team that came out actually just this year, 2024. So inside on this team, there was like a Bizarro 2. There was Dreamer. There was Amanda Waller's nephew, Deadshot or Deadeye or whatever the heck his name was. This Suicide Squad team had a Clock King, and I believe it was this Clock King as part of the squad here, as you can see here. William Talkman, a.k.a. the Clock King, yada, yada, yada. So I think this is the Clock King we are working with today. So bring us back to our issue. I think this is the one. Now, furthermore, inside the rehashing of this story, he references that Suicide Squad team, which further provides me evidence that this is the Clock King that we're dealing with. So the 2014 version is probably the one that we're tying to. Maybe it is the original, just updated, but point being, 2014 is probably the one we're looking at here, because right here, they're referencing that Suicide Squad dream team right there. Okay? Moving on to the story. He's also having flashbacks of how the doctor had found out that he had this anomaly inside his brain. And did anybody else see this? No, just the doctor. He takes out the doctor because he doesn't want anybody to know about his super secret power and where his powers come from inside his brain with that temporal, whatever the heck that is. I don't know. It is what it is. With that said, we're going to roll on into the next bit of the story where we find out that at this stage of the game, Clock King actually has the whole team tied up in these chairs, and he's messing with their brains. He's messing with their memories, trying to put them all into bad places. Now, we continue the story here, which goes in and out of their memories and the visions that they're all having here and there. We're getting individual fights and things going. References too about some terrible moments that they're being forced to relive. Like right here, Arsenal is being forced to relive Green Arrow, his mentor, turning on everybody, which you guys remember he did during Absolute Power. So there it is in Green Lantern 13, which is even referenced, a little call out button, a little call out box. Hey, remember when Green Lantern screwed everybody? There you go. Cool. So again, Clock King messing with everybody's brains. We're seeing all these flashbacks, the fights and things that they had to deal with. And again, are forced to relive these terrible moments that may or may not have happened exactly as they're remembering it. But inside of that, Donna Troy kind of figures out a workaround and brings them to a point where she's working with her memory, which is the recent memory where they just were at the end of last issue, because everybody was there. And apparently the messing of the mind can work both ways, and they can now all together fight back the Clock King and get themselves free. So boom, hey, they fight back and they get themselves free of Clock King. Great. Meanwhile, Clock King also gets away. So they get free. Clock King escapes. Cool. Epilogue of this issue, Clock King's at a bar drinking. Shady character comes up and said, hey, we can still take him down. You had a good idea, but you didn't see it through the right way. You need help. I can help you. Who's the strategist who's here to help the Clock King take down the Justice League, take down the Titans? Well, obviously, it's got to be Deathstroke, right? Boom, it's Deathstroke. So, yes, Deathstroke is back. He's not dead, but we knew that already. Because remember, he was brought back. But we'll get to that in a second. So Deathstroke is the surprise character here at the end. Cool. I can always deal with some more Deathstroke. Now, this appears to be the original Deathstroke, not the makeshift one that was in Shadow War, which was actually Geo-Force standing in to pretending to be Deathstroke. So it doesn't look like it's an imposter because, again, he's back. Granted, the original first appearance of Deathstroke was in New Teen Titans #2. Yes, very pricey book. We all get that. If you can find it, go ahead and get it. But that would be the first appearance of Deathstroke. But if you're curious about how he returned, because remember, Deathstroke was dead for a bit, you got to go back to Shadow War Omega, which again had that imposter Geo-Force version of Deathstroke for a stretch. But at the end of it, as again, an epilogue to that storyline, we see the dead body of Deathstroke being dropped into a Lazarus pit by these other villains. So they drop him into the Lazarus pit and boom, look who's back, Deathstroke. So there you go. That's how he was reincarnated. That's what he brought back to life. Now, with that all said, what did I think of this issue? Well, I haven't been reading Titans for a while. I have liked Titans. I do like the squad. I do like the team. I mean, I am a Teen Titans Go fan because it is kind of a sillier show. But I think after reading this issue and kind of catching up, I could add this to my pull. I could see a little bit more. And again, they kind of get me hooked on Deathstroke. I haven't seen Deathstroke. I haven't read a Deathstroke book in a while, or with a book with Deathstroke in it. So okay, you got my attention. Him being a baddie again and seeing where they're going to go from here. So I like the art. Storyline was all right. I could add this to my pull. So I think I'm going to keep giving this one a go going forward, at least for a little bit. See how it goes. Now, For those of you out there, you got to buy that stuff that you need. You need to protect your collectibles. You got to buy your bags, your boards, your short boxes, your long boxes, your top loaders, your card pages, whatever it might be that you need to keep your collectibles safe. You don't want to spend that money. Nobody does. But if you got to spend it, you might as well use the link and my code RENA10 and save yourself 10% off, because if you got to spend the money anyway, you might as well save some money while you do it, right? So if you're going to buy that stuff anyway, use the code RENA10, save yourself 10% off, because it doesn't hurt to save money, even when you got to buy stuff that you may not want. It's not a sexy purchase, but we all need them. We need the bags, we need the boards, we need the boxes. So save money while you do it. With that said, our last book of the day. Try to get this going quicker, but man, I keep adding to the backstories of these things because I want to kind of bring everybody, including myself, up to speed. As I've said, I've not been reading a lot of these titles, so I had to look back to kind of get myself grounded to understand what was going on in the issue. If I'm going to read it for you, I got to have the whole backstory, at least some semblance of an idea what's going on. Now, with that said, I'm looking at another G.I. Joe book here out of the image side of things. Granted, this is not the Energon universe. This is the continuation of the old school Marvel IDW run that Larry Hama is still writing. Now, G.I. Joe 311, we're going to look at a lot of these dreadnoughts that are right here on the cover of this book. But before we do that, let's bring ourselves, again, up to speed on what's previously occurred in this series. Now, I haven't been reading these religiously. I'm falling behind, so all I knew was that there was a war going on. I didn't know the stakes or what exactly was happening. So, in the last issue or so, there is a big battle going on. So, you've got a lot of different factions fighting each other in this corner of the universe. So, it's a fight for Springfield. So, at the current state of last issue, you had metaled up, armored up Cobra Commander fighting the Dreadnoks. So, you got regular Cobra fighting Dreadnoks. Meanwhile, you've also got the Joes fighting the Creature Commando version of Cobra, which is being run by Serpentor. But also in this issue, Cobra Commander, in his armored form, basically shoots Baroness right there in the chest. Boom. She takes a hit. This causes a stoppage of play. Zartan's grabbing her. He's got to find her some help. The rest of the Dreadnoks try to take out Cobra Commander so they can make their escape. You got Road Pig, you got Torch, you got Buzzsaw. They're all there. And then there's Zartan's trying to escape with Baroness to go get her some help. Now, that comes into play when we start the next issue. This is why I had to go back. So, what the hell happened? Meanwhile, like I said, the Joes are also in the midst of fighting their Creature Commando version mutant army of Cobra offshoot. So, you got that going on. Battle of Springfield. It's a huge battle going on. They escape and they run into Zartan. They're fleeing. Hey, I'm going to the hospital. Got to get Baroness some help. Let's all tag together. So the Joes and the Dreadnoks kind of group up and they're all running away. Run away! Meanwhile, at the end of the issue, they tease Destro's involvement with Mars. So his squad of armies and whatever is going to get into the fray and start fighting in Springfield as well. There we are. Now that we're all up to speed and all caught up, we can get into the actual issue. So in 311, as it opens, like I said, I open up the book and I'm like, what the heck's going on? We've got the mutants still fighting the regular Cobras. So Cobra Commander's leading his armies against the mutant version of Cobra that is Serpentor's crew, basically. Air fight going on. Things are looking good for the Cobra side of things. We got Rattlers, we got Mambas flying through the sky, and then fight seems to be going their way. The mutant version seems to be taking some heavy hits. But meanwhile, we go back to Zartan and his crew of Dreadnoks and Joes who are fleeing with the injured Baroness in tow. Here's where we're going to stop and pause and look at a lot of these characters. So before we move on with the story, let's take a look at a lot of these characters here. So starting off first, right up in front, we're going to go to this panel because there's a lot of characters in this particular panel that we can cover. Starting off here with the main man up front, Zartan. So Zartan, I didn't really want that little background to play again, but there we go. So Zartan. His first appearance goes back to G.I. Joe number 24 back in 1984. You can see him right at the tail end of the book being introduced. Boom, there he is, Zartan. Cool. No confusion. Yes, it's at the tail end of the book. So we'll do the arguments of cameo or his first full. I don't care. He's at the end of this book. I'm telling you, that's where he is. That's all. Also, in this panel, when we go back to it, we have other Dreadnought characters we can look at, like her right here. So here we have Zorana. So Zorana is also in this panel, and she wasn't in the original run of Dreadnought. She showed up a little bit later in 1986 in G.I. Joe issue 50. So, about a couple years later, 25 issues later, 26 issues later, boom, there's her introduction there at the tail end of this book, because G.I. Joe liked to do those last page reveal introductions. So, hey, who is this in shadow? Who are you? There you go. I'm Zartan's sister, Zorana. Cool. Now, we're not done there. Also on this panel down low, who's driving the, the Thunder, what is it? The Thunder, I forget what their vehicle's called off the top of my head right now. But anyway, driving with Baroness in tow is another character here. This is Thrasher. So Thrasher is also one of the Dreadnoks who was introduced not in the initial run of things, but pretty early on. But right there around Zorana's edition in issue 51 of G.I. Joe, also in 1986, is when we get the car and Thrasher being introduced. So apart from the car being on the front cover, there he is inside, as everybody's meeting and hey, where's that brother of mine? And the whole storyline at the time, Zartan was, I think, with the Joes or captured or something like that, and then they had to free him. That's a story for another time. Don't want to get caught in the weeds there. We're still going through a lot of Dreadnought first here. So also in this panel, we see the other brother back here. So we are talking about Xandar. So Xandar, with the red hair and his weird face paint. He was also in that same issue as Thrasher in issue 51 back in 1986. A little bit later in the issue. Don't have his name here, but his name is dropped a little bit later in the issue. But there he is riding one of those moccasin like swamp skiffs with his sister Zorana. So boom, he was introduced in this issue as well. Not done. We still got some more. Also here at the top of the vehicle, on the top is what looks like a space pirate. Or just a pirate in general. And that is Zanzibar, because we love our Z's with Dreadnoks. So here is Zanzibar. Zanzibar is on the cover of his first appearance issue, which was issue 60 of G.I. Joe back in 1987. But just to give you a little bit extra, want to show you him inside here too. So boom, there he is hanging out with the crew. And yes, he definitely has pirate type qualities. So there is Zanzibar. Meanwhile, we're going to keep rolling here a little bit further. They get to where they're going to this hospital saying, hey, it's a Cobra hospital, or a hospital that Cobra has just taken over at this stage, saying they need help. You need help. You're going to stop me. Baroness got shot. So you got Joe's, you got Dreadnoks there kind of backing him up. But here, even though we saw him in the last issue of my recap, we didn't get much of him in this issue. But this guy right here, we can see the back of his head. He is there. He is one of the Dreadnoks. We are talking about the character of Road Pig, which is one of those big beefy G.I. Joes from back in the day. He had the flat top. They kind of made him a little bit more buff than most. And yeah, Road Pig. He also was on the cover of his first appearance back on issue 83 in 1989. So property of Road Pig, boom, cool. He had this weird cinder block hammer and chest armor. He looked like one of the, looked like a professional wrestler to me. But right inside this issue, right off the bat, there he is, Road Pig. So yes, he is not only on the cover, he is in the book as well. Continuing on. Cobra fighting. Again, we got all these different factions, coming into play here. You got Rattlers being shot down. What's happening? It's Night Ravens taking them down. Those are these ships. Remember these badass jet, by the way, one of my favorite toys of that time, the Cobras. But yeah, so they're taking them down, and they are being led by their leader, Serpentor Khan. Now, Serpentor Khan isn't exactly Serpentor. I know if you remember the original storyline and the original cartoon where he was, we'll take the DNA of all these old leaders like Genghis Khan and Alexander the Great, and we'll make a little cocktail mix and make the perfect leader for Cobra. Yeah, that was not only in the comics, but it happened in the cartoons as well. But that's not the Serpentor we're dealing with right now. We are dealing with basically just Genghis Khan cosplaying as Serpentor, as I understand it. Mindbender brought him back. But just to bring you up again to speed on Serpentor, the original Serpentor goes back to issue 49 of G.I. Joe from 1986. And that is, like I said, where they got getting the bodies and the bits, and they do the magical whatever regurgitation and bring him to speed. And yes, there's Serpentor, now going to be their leader of Cobra. Cool. That's not the one we're dealing with here. The one we're dealing with here was just introduced at the tail end of IDW's run in issue 298 back in 2022, where Dr. Mindbender apparently brought Genghis Khan back to life, and he just upright and decided, you know what? I'm going to be rocking this now. I'm taking over. I'm going to be leading Cobra. So Serpentor Khan is now this version of Serpentor that we're dealing with now. Anyway, getting back to the fight. So you got Serpentor Khan leading the muty versions of Cobra, and you got the regular Cobras, and then you got Zartan here pretending to be Cobra Commander so he can get Baroness some help in this Cobra run hospital, or this, Cobra right now taking over hospital. So he's pretending to be Cobra Commander, getting her some help. They're doing the help. They're doing what they can do. Meanwhile, the Joes and the Dreadnoks are trying to figure out what to do as the mutant Cobras are still getting themselves all together. Fight's still going on everywhere. Things are getting more tense. Serpentor Khan's out there fighting with his muties. Meanwhile, coming into the mix, T's last issue, here comes Destro in his little flying cart with his crew of Iron Grenadiers or whatever. I forget what they're called, but he's looking for Zartan and the Dreadnoks and Baroness, because you know how he feels about Baroness. So he's going to be none too pleased when he finds out what happened and what's going on. But for now, he's got to mix it up with Serpentor. So boom, that's where we leave off. These two going head to head. Cool. So a lot of catching up. Again, a lot of catching up to do to get myself up to speed on this one. I'm kind of curious to see where this is now going to go. I feel like now I'm thrown in the middle of it, but my final word is I did feel way behind when I was reading this because I haven't been reading the last few issues. So, I mean, we're in the middle of a battle. I didn't know what was going on. I had to bring myself up to speed, but now that I am, I'm kind of on board to get more. So, with that said, this went a tiny bit longer than I'd hoped. I'm still trying to get this down to 30 minutes. We're doing 10 minutes a book, but still, hopefully you're enjoying this, and hopefully you found it interesting and helpful. So if you wanted to know about these books, now whether you like them or not, you don't have to get them if you don't want to. I gave you what happened in them, so you should be up to speed as well as find out some other fun books that you can go and hunt to tie into some of these storylines if you wanted to do so. So with that all said, until next time, thank you again for all the support. I love comics. I'm sure most of you love comics out there as well. So let me know what I can do to make this particular show better and more of the content that you guys want for me to provide to you. So I don't know. You let me know. And with that all said, I'll see you all later with some more content. All right. Bye.